So what I'll start by saying is that good transitions start months before a race, not race morning. I'd encourage you to go through this long litany of stuff I have here for my checklist on race day when you have time, and you can ask me questions on email or whatever. There's two kinds of transitions we got to talk about, and I don't mean T1 and T2. I mean the kind of transition where you're trying to win the race or win your age group or gain the last 4 or 5 seconds, and then the kind of transition where you want to make sure you're having a good time and not wasting time. I think most of us fall into the latter category. Have a plan. You need to have a plan, and the plan needs to be as simple as possible, achieve what you need to achieve, and it needs to be followed. Don't change the plan the hour before. Have the plan for weeks in advance. Practice the plan. This is my checklist. It's obnoxious. It's obsessive. You'll notice that a lot of the things are on there 3 and 4 times. That's because this list starts off as the base list. But doing this, and you're not going to end up at the race without your helmet. You're not going to end up in transition without your run shoes. You're not going to end up blowing your race on something silly. The first thing I'd recommend is having your transition be as simple as possible. I've seen a lot of buckets of water come to transition because people want to come out of the water and dip their feet in their bucket and get the sand off. Don't bring a bucket of water to transition. I've seen a lot of big bags right next to the bike. That's dangerous, and it's not polite to your neighbors either. So bring your big bag, do what you got to do, and then give your big bag to your buddies or your wife. When it comes time to, you're going to be approaching this bike from the water, all that should be here is what you need. I'm leaving one thing out. I would have my hat there, I'd have my glasses there, I'd have a race belt there. Other than that, that's what would be here. And that's for 70.3 and lower. Ironman is a little different. We'll talk about that in a second. The reason I write this stuff out like this before a race is to close my eyes and see myself doing each of these tasks. I've got my goggles on and I'm ready to swim. I'm going to run from the water. I write run there because that's where a lot of time is lost. You don't have to walk. Just run. That's going to save you a lot of time by itself, and it's low risk. Get your goggles up early because you want to be able to see. Run to the bike. I write run in here a lot. You got to remind yourself. There's a lot of time spent. That's a quarter. NOLA's sometimes a quarter mile from the exit of the swim to your bike. You can, if you're running an 8-minute mile, a quarter mile takes 2 minutes. If you're walking a 15-minute mile, you can immediately tell the difference in time just from the exact same transition you do when you reach the bike. The time to get there and the time to leave is huge. So we come in and out of the water. First thing I would do is get my goggles up. I might as well do all of it, right? Figures. Anyway, get your goggles up. You're running in. You got this unzipped. You put this stuff in one hand. And then when this is, like I said, when it's wet, it comes off way easier. So you get it down like this, and you pull the arm out, and you leave your goggles and cap in the arm. Okay? So now your arm's free. Same thing here. Violently pull that sucker out, and now you're running. Okay? Come to your bike, and I would suggest you run like this. Or you go to the wetsuit stripper at this point, and they rip your pants off, and you run like that. You come up to your bike, and your plan is simple, right? You're to come here, you're gonna get this suit off, number one. Now, when it's dry, it takes a little while, right? But you just rip it down, and you gotta be a little violent. I know the suit costs hundreds of dollars, and nobody wants to destroy anything, but sometimes you just have to. So you just step out of it, and as fast as you can. So you're out. Run to right here. Your suit should already be down around your waist. Strip the suit off the rest of the way, helmet on, and we'll talk about a couple of options here. If your helmet's on, your bike's set up like this, it's fine. Take it, run to the mount line, and run past the mount line. Now the bike's set up like this. There's 2 ways to handle this kind of setup. You run to the mount line, you go 5 yards past it, you throw your leg over the bike, you put your foot on this shoe, and you start pedaling. And you gain the time of not having to mess with your shoes while you're standing still. Now you mess with your shoes when you're on the bike rolling. The other option, which is what I'd recommend for almost everybody, is you put the shoes on right here, and you run with the shoes on your feet to the mountain line, get to the mountain line, stop, throw your foot over there, and pedal like you've pedaled every single day you've ever ridden a bike. If you're going to do any of the other options, you got to practice. And I don't mean like the day before riding around the parking lot. I mean, if you're going to go jump on this bike and try to start pedaling, you need to have practiced that, because all this stuff comes down to risk and reward. When you're talking about should I do a flying mount or a flying dismount, the question is how much time is a crash worth? And how much likelihood does it increase your crashing? So if a crash is worth 5 minutes or end of your race, and it's a 50-50 chance it's going to happen when you do this crazy mount, it's probably not a good idea. The only thing that'll get you disqualified in triathlon fast is no helmet. So you get helmet on, grab your bike, you got to go to the mountain line. Like I said, you want to go beyond the mountain line. And so we have an imaginary mountain line, we're running, I would hop on and go like that. If this was my transition parking lot, I would come up to transition like this. I would brush my feet off quickly to get the rocks off, put them on, strap them in, helmet on, and you're gone. Dismounts, I think if you practice, it's kind of the same thing except in the opposite order. Some people like to go back leg over this. If you have a bike bag or some bottles or something like that, it's going to be a bad crash, because you're going to throw your leg back, you're going to clip them, and you're going to go down bad. But on this bike, it's not too bad to do it. Just come to a stop, put your foot down before the mountain line, and run. If it's a parking lot like this, keep the shoes on. Whichever way you get here, you get here. You come in. One thing I hate, but it's the nature of the beast, you got to put your very expensive, beautiful Aero helmet down on the ground for someone to kick. Mine's got scratches on it, it really upsets me. But you got to put it down somewhere. So you throw it down, come up, and you got your plan, right? Your plan is simple. Wipe your feet, don't sit down. I mean, unless you absolutely have to sit down to put on your shoes, don't sit down. Sock, shoe, sock, shoe. I would also have my race belt, which would have everything else attached to it. I'd take that and I'd be running. Helmet on, hat on, everything else while I'm running. Being efficient, just making a good, conscious plan and executing that plan is going to save you way more time over other people than whether or not you run without socks, for instance. You have your plan, stick to your plan, visualize your plan. Everybody's nervous the night before a race. Use that time to close your eyes and see the race happening. See the stuff that's going to happen. Visualize how it should go. Don't think about all the stuff that could go wrong. Think about how it's supposed to go. You get there and you do everything properly and see it happening multiple times. It's a good use of your time when you can't sleep because you're nervous. Okay, so that's a half Ironman transition plan that I use. Very similar for a sprint, very similar for Olympic distance. The other page is a full Ironman one. I included it just so you can see how I handle that, but those are very different. You got to know your race, you got to know your conditions, and work around them.